GOP guest is the network,
Uh-huh.
and password is welcome GOP, capital W, capital GOP.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, wait, for what?
You're on it.
Oh, no kidding, yeah.
He's in there, I saw him go in there.
Okay.
You would think they would be working with the shows that one of the shows want, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Isn't Jim a music
You know, what people said.
Yeah.
And then, you know, let them know so you were outside actually earlier.
That's good.
And then when this starts,
I talked to my producer,
You shall walk in this morning.
Yeah. Couple. Not too, no, not too many.
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Jen, did you see anybody?
No, that's why I was worried. I almost stayed there with my goals and 2 people lost. So,
Yeah.
that's just a great thought.
so when it starts, all this stuff
You don't have
is
to agree.
very simple.
You get paid more than I
Now I got rid of you guys.
What do you do?
Yeah.
Sometimes there will be conflict in the population. What breaks down the state or the conflict. But, you know, it's a voluntarily.
Mutually.
Them more than you should screw over. That sort of will be their job.
Did you work on last week? Right. I'm sure white folks person do. Are you ready to plug in the documents stuff?
Yeah, so do you guys like the White House to call like KJP?
Yeah.
Everything, transactional oversight, yeah, exactly.
Our white house person is so.
Stonewalling.
Everything I watch.
So then additional.
Yeah.
This tax.
Like, oh.
Exactly. What's up, G?
Of the interview.
Hey, right there. Hey, okay. Hey, call me on WhatsApp. I have no Wi-Fi. I have no cell service here.
Why?
WhatsApp.
Because that's what.
Call me on WhatsApp.
We'll do it on the other network.
That is really interesting. I've never been able to just call them.
What do you think about these?
I can, yeah, I have a good question.
Sorry, it's not let you talk because I can't multitask. I don't know if you're good at multitasking.
I'm in a literal dead zone, so if this doesn't work, you have to text me, and this is gonna start in 2 minutes. Okay. Okay. Got it, okay, perfect, thanks, Jane. Thanks, bye.
Wait, it seems like a lot.
You never, you never.
That it is.
Okay. How many users are there?
Right now there's two. Kelly, and then Brianna, who's on call, she works in the newsroom, but she's been helping us out a lot. She's been really great with helping us out. Because I was just,
This is very close.
Oh.
Yeah.
and then, apparently,
How was it?
so, Jen's rates were happy.
Right. Did you walk all the way across?
Yeah, I walked all the way, I think, along Martha.
It just threw me right into it. And
Oh, people
had
stay
to.
back.
I mean, like my second week, I was like quarterback. I
I thought it was the worst in that.
I mean, I'm still figuring out like situations, like just for stuff I'm like,
Yeah.
I encounter a situation every day that
They all come.
What's your email?
Oh, what?
And you know what
Yeah, you did.
Great.
a lot of that.
How was it?
From gallery.
Everybody's huffing and puffing.
Reach out to
Everybody's coming in, malice guard. Can't be reckless. Gotta keep this clear. Gotta keep this clear.
We've been here since the sweat.
That's what we were talking about, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Flying on me. That was the most crowded I've ever seen.
I left early.
It was peak COVID.
Yeah, I left early.
Oh, you did? Oh, no. What a trip.
Yeah, I walked by and I went to one. Everyone's walking through, he's like,
Yeah, I'm coming.
Just because there's quite a few of them, so let's just put this here.
Oh,
for when they come in.
what?
Just sit next to you.
What?
It was good, actually. Good. Yeah, I'm pretty good.
I'm sorry, I know it's not ideal. Yeah.
But when they, once they're in, we can just.
Yeah, once they're in, you guys can come here, as long as you promise to clear it out.
Yeah.
Look at him, he's standing
They're
right
just,
there.
I know, he's ignoring me.
I know, I'm trying to alert you to that. Get him
Well, no, you just don't want him to get a bit of a picture of you.
Huh? That's right. No, we're just, he always does this. No.
I would just,
Tells everybody else to
if
do
you
it.
would mind, there's this beautiful seat right
I'm
here.
sitting over here, I'm just gonna get them walking,
Oh, cool. Wait,
and then I'll scurry out of the way.
he doesn't scurry, he stays there.
He's a planter.
That's what they call him, planter.
You guys are the worst.
Just to keep it interesting. You guys are huffing and puffing, huh?
We were
Kansas is fast. Kansas is fast.
Yeah, we're basically sprinting.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's got one leg. I've never seen somebody.
Is he doing the sweater thing underneath the coat?
I honestly don't know. I blacked out. I don't remember anything. Just trying not to run over hard.
Time to, 9 in the morning, time to join the January, join the gym, post
At the gym, they can do like, scrum training.
Yeah. So I was backpedaling in perfect time with Xanthos, and all of a sudden I feel this hand on my back, and I'm like totally slow down. Look back, it was Tom.
You were out of position.
Help me.
So I was in the best position
And all of a sudden, since I was like, right.
to get that, and we switched to single.
We have shit.
Oh, yeah. Hard act. You got a haircut. Let's see. Sorry.
We'll be starting here soon, so if everyone can kind of take your places and clear this walk path.
Thank you.
Clear the path. Sir, can we get you to check in, please? And clear the path.
This is just the grace of all.
Clear the path.
Harnica also has that picture. You gotta have some.
What's going on Saturday Live?
No.
Tell me about your tile. We almost did that in our kitchen.
What?
What kind of tile? Black and white.
Oh, you saw this post? That's just the little entryway, like
Is it
3 by 3.
porcelain or marble? What is it? Here's my better question.
Right, expensive
How much
marble.
was it? It's probably expensive.
Now look, at this point it's done up.
Make sure you, it's the entryway? Make sure you
Yeah, it's
the grout.
they painted the
Oh, there it is.
the
Must be nice.
red
Okay,
garden.
something to do.
Red
No,
garden.
under, but you have to see, if it's marble, you have to, I mean,
Oh,
that's
right,
the
right, right. Oh, I gotta find out.
Okay, guys, coming out, please clear the walkway.
Arnie, walk right, don't make me push you again.
Good morning. Thank you for being here today. This week, House Republicans are working to end Joe Biden's assault on American energy independence and restore our depleted strategic petroleum reserves. For far too long, Joe Biden has risked America's national security and drained our strategic petroleum reserves to cover up for his anti-American energy agenda. The SPR is for emergencies, not Joe Biden's political points. Our strategic petroleum reserves oil is only supposed to be used for national security events, but Joe Biden has sold nearly 40% of our stockpile since being elected. In fact, Joe Biden has sold off more of our oil reserves than every U.S. president in history combined. Today, our crucial emergency oil reserves are at the lowest level in my lifetime. As a result, China now has the world's largest government-controlled stockpile of oil, and Joe Biden and his administration have no plan to reverse course. Under an open rule, this week, House Republicans will continue to implement our commitment to America. This week, we will pass a bill to prevent abuse of the SPR and require Joe Biden to put forth a plan to increase domestic production. It is long past time to unleash American energy and restore our standing on the world stage. House Republicans will hold the Biden administration accountable for tying the hands of America's oil and gas producers in the midst of an energy crisis. We will deliver on our promise to defend our energy security, to support an economy that's strong. And with that, I want to yield to one of our members who is very active on energy issues, August Pfluger from Texas.
I thank the conference chair, gentlelady from New York, for her leadership. One of the first things that Speaker McCarthy said he was going to do in our commitment to America was to regain energy dominance. We're not in a transition, we're in an expansion. The demand for energy has never been higher. And from the first day in office, President Biden has sent a clear message to oil and gas workers across the country. He said your jobs don't matter. He said your mortgage payments don't matter, and your children's education and putting food on the table don't matter. In fact, remember when the president, as he was campaigning, said that he would end the fossil fuel industry. He's used his own political emergencies to drain the SPR to its lowest levels in 40 years. The SPR is intended for emergencies, national security emergencies, weather emergencies. It's intended to be a reserve to help the American people, the American economy, in the case of emergencies. But we have watched him, the president, shackle U.S. producers with needless regulations while going abroad and begging other people, including our adversaries, for our own needs that we can do right here. This Republican majority knows, like I said, that we're not in a transition, we're in an expansion. And we're going to work to restore American energy security. We're going to allow our industry to provide affordable, reliable energy to every American, instead of what the president has done, which is weaponize the EPA, weaponize FERC, weaponize every regulatory agency and department in his administration against the energy industry. I'd like to ask, where are my Democrat colleagues? Where are my Democrat colleagues from Texas to stand up for affordable, reliable energy? Not only is this a national security imperative, but the energy industry allows our economy to continue to grow strong. That's the biggest tool we can use to regain our standing on the world stage. Where are my colleagues who want to ease the burden of inflation that the president has caused for the past 2 years? It's time to regain energy dominance, to meet the growing demands that our economy and our national security so desperately need. Every week we like to highlight a freshman member, and I'd like to introduce my colleague, my good friend, the gentlelady from Oregon, Ms. Lori Chavez de Rima.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be before you as one of the majority makers, and as a mom, and as a business owner, and as a mayor. These issues matter. They matter to Oregonians, and they matter to Americans. Due to the poor energy policies, we've gone from energy independent to energy dependent, and that's what we want to avoid. And in order to do that, we have to have a plan. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is intended for emergencies. Nearly 40% of the stockpile is now gone, the lowest level we've seen in 40 years. It was the largest drawdown in U.S. history. It's clear that Congress needs to act. The people who elected us expect us to have a plan. That's what mayors do. That's what congressional leaders do. Failing to do so leaves us vulnerable. Natural disasters and national emergencies in the future. We have to be prepared. The Strategic Production Response Act requires us a plan that Oregonians asked us to pay attention to, that Americans asked us to pay attention to. Domestic energy production, if the SPR is tapped for those non-emergency purposes. I'm very proud as a freshman legislator to co-sponsor this bill. It's an important step forward in restoring our energy security. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Tom Emmer.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. Little change of pace. It's been made clear over the past week that House Republicans are going to have to be proactive and take the lead on debt ceiling negotiations. As usual, in the swamp, everyone else wants to pass the buck. But Republicans ran and won in 2022 on reining in reckless federal spending. So we're ready to negotiate. It would be a grave mistake for Democrats and the man in the Oval Office to dig their heels in on such an important issue. It's time for Joe Biden to come to the bargaining table. It's responsible, it's sensible, and it's reasonable. House Republicans are waiting, and we're ready. And I turn it over to the majority leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Whip Emmert. I'm real excited to see that y'all get the opportunity to meet some of our new freshmen, some of the majority makers, and Lori Chavez de Rima is one of those happy warriors from Happy Valley. She was the mayor of Happy Valley, and really great when I got to go out to her district in Oregon. You could tell she was going to be somebody that came here to help fix the mess that we're seeing in Washington and throughout our country. And as Elise has talked about, we're going to be introducing you to more of those freshmen every week. And we're also here ready to go to work. And I think one of the most exciting parts of this new majority is that, number one, we wanted to jettison the approach that Speaker Pelosi took, where she shut down the ability for even committee chairs to be involved in addressing problems. Bills were written out of her office. She wouldn't even let chairmen amend major pieces of legislation in committees, not allowing rank and file members the ability to have an input in how the process works. And so this week you're going to see another example of us opening things up, an open rule, something we haven't seen in 7 years here in Congress, on the Strategic Petroleum Reserve Bill that says if the president's going to raid SPRO, not during emergencies, but just in normal times, he at least has to show a plan for how he would replenish it. If you're going to take something away, you should show people how you're going to refill it. And what was interesting is that the president issued a veto threat on this bill yesterday. And it's important that you read the veto threat to understand just how misguided President Biden's approach to energy is. And in the veto threat, he actually said that his policies of raiding SPRO have led to lower gas prices. Now, I don't know if the calculator is broken at the White House, but since Joe Biden's been in office, we've seen a 40% increase in gas prices. That's not lowering, it's actually increasing so dramatically that it's hurting hardworking families. It's one of the reasons that you pay more for everything when you go to the grocery store, when you go to the shopping mall. Anything you buy now costs more money because of Joe Biden's policies, and he's trying to claim that that's actually lowered costs when in fact it's increased costs. And families know that. They know if you have bad energy policy, it makes our country less safe. It's not like we're using less energy. We're actually using more energy. It's just now we become more reliant on foreign countries. There's no reason for that. We have the most abundant supply of energy here in America. And by the way, if you're concerned about carbon emissions, and from the sound of all those private jets going to Davos last week, it seems like those faux conservationists seem to like talking in foreign countries about it, but they don't practice it here in America. Nobody makes energy in the world cleaner than the United States of America. So stop flying Air Force One to Saudi Arabia and other countries, begging Russia to produce energy when we can make it here cleaner, better, lowering the cost, and creating really good jobs in America. But in the meantime, we've got a strategic petroleum reserve for a reason. It's there for emergencies. It's not there to mask the president's bad energy policies. It's there in times of need, and this president's raided more than 40% of that reserve. This bill just says if you're going to raid the reserve, show a plan on how you're going to replenish it. And why the White House would issue a veto threat on that boggles, I think, the mind of most common sense people. But unfortunately, that's what we've seen commonplace from this administration. Obviously, there are a lot of other issues like the debt ceiling that the whip talked about that we are deeply interested in solving. But with that, I'd be happy to take your questions. Yeah.
Thanks so much. I was just wondering about the select subcommittee on COVID, and if you could comment on when those hearings are expected to start, and also will they be building on the work that you and Representative Jordan, Representative Rogers, and McCall did on this issue in the previous Congress?
I'm glad you recognize how important that work was that we did last year. Look, I've talked to now Chairman Wenstrup. Brad Wenstrup was just formally named as the chairman yesterday. I think that word went out, and we've appointed our members. Obviously, the Democrats need to appoint their members, so the committee is ready to start working. But once they get fully constituted, like all of our committees, with both Republicans and Democrats, they're going to go to work. But there are a lot of important issues, and I know we tried to address them in the last Congress, things like the origins of COVID. And of course, the Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus will be one of those committees. Energy and Commerce, a number of other committees will have jurisdiction as well. But we're going to be asking those questions. We never got the right answers on the number of nursing home deaths that occurred in those states that went against the CDC guidance on how to take care properly of people in nursing home. Thousands. In New York alone, a minimum of 13,000 people died that never should have. But the number from what we've heard from people on the ground is a lot higher than that. But the governor's never released that data. So we obviously want to get answers for families, and that's what that committee will be focused on.
On Schiff and Swalwell, Democrats are characterizing this move by Leader McCarthy to keep them off of Intel as nothing but political vengeance. Wondering your response to that. And then secondly, do you know if Republicans are going to have the votes to keep Ilhan Omar off of Foreign Affairs?
Well, with all of those members you talked about, they're very specific things that they've done in their time here in Congress. I don't even think Swalwell could get a security clearance in the private sector. So why should he be on the Intelligence Committee? I mean, these committees are very unique in that they deal with our national secrets. They deal with very classified information. And if people have shown a propensity to either espouse anti-American, anti-Semitic views, do things that have put themselves in a compromised position, including lying about classified information, it raises serious questions. And again, those are very unique committees. You get access to a lot of classified information. There are a lot of members on the Democrat side that don't have those kind of conflicts. And I know the Speaker has urged Hakeem Jeffries to appoint people that don't have those conflicts.
Are the votes there to keep Omar off of Foreign Affairs, though?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, we'll see if they appoint her, but we have no intention of having them serve on those committees. Yeah.
I think the facts are important here, and rather than reading this through the lens of the headlines, getting to the facts are important. In the case of Vice President Mike Pence, he came forward and proactively reached out and is following the process. In the case of Joe Biden, he has had classified documents going back to his time in the Senate, where he started serving before I was born. So this is a long-standing national security threat, setting aside the very important fact that Hunter Biden also had access and used as his home address where those classified documents were improperly and illegally stored. This will be a part of the oversight agenda, and on the House Intelligence Committee, we absolutely want to make sure we have all of the facts.
Is there a concern, we've seen it with former President Donald Trump, with Biden, with Pence, that, some of the top leaders just aren't handling classified information at all? Should there be some sort of reforms with how the top leaders have access to that information?
Well, let's highlight the difference here in what the consequences have been. You had the FBI raid Mar-a-Lago. You did not see any of that happen for President Joe Biden, who illegally did this. What also is different is President Trump, as president, has the right to declassify documents. So the media should cover the fact that the FBI has been weaponized against President Trump and clearly has covered up for sitting President Joe Biden.
And to finish up on that, now we'll go to other questions, but to finish up on that, number one, President Trump had been working with National Archives and put those documents under lock and key that the FBI then broke through to go get those, and then leaked photos. They laid the documents out on the floor, and they leaked photos out. Anybody asked where the leaked photos of the Vice President, at the time, Biden's documents that he had in his garage? I haven't seen those leaked photos. And also the fact that Justice had that information prior to the election and sat on it and covered it up until after the election. There are a lot of questions, obviously, that are raised where there are big differences. Yeah, we'll go over to this side.
Mr. Leader, if you could talk at all, I know you mentioned debt ceiling, but how seriously are Republicans considering any form of entitlement reform, a national sales tax? Where are you on those discussions, specifically in terms of cuts in these negotiations around the debt ceiling?
Well, what we've been very concerned about is, number one, the debt ceiling is a symptom of the bigger Washington spending problem. And Joe Biden, for the last 2 years, went on a spending spree the likes of which our country has never seen. $5 trillion in spending, a lot of it under the guise of COVID that had nothing to do with COVID. Doing things like paying people not to work, where you have millions of people right now who are sitting at home that are fully capable of working and getting $30,000, $40,000 in government benefits. That, by the way, undermines Social Security, because if those millions of people were working, they'd be paying into Social Security, helping shore that program up, which, by the way, we strongly believe that Social Security needs to be strengthened for seniors who paid into it. What President Biden did, paying people not to work, actually undermined Social Security and expedited its bankruptcy. But the bigger question is, can we get spending under control in Washington? And if the nation's credit card, which is the debt ceiling, gets maxed out, you've got a few questions. The first is, number one, I think most families, if they max out their credit card, they're going to sit down and have a conversation about how to responsibly deal with the problem. If you're taking in less money than you're spending, that's the problem. We're taking in, by the way, $1 and spending $1.29 in Washington. So for every dollar we take in, Washington's spending $1.29. That's not sustainable. And so for President Biden to say we can't even have that conversation, that's irresponsible. And so what Speaker McCarthy has said is, let's go sit down and have an honest conversation about how to solve this problem. If Washington is spending too much money, is there not some money that President Biden can identify that's wasteful in Washington? We've laid out some real good examples. There are hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID money that are being misspent, payments that are going to people that don't even have Social Security numbers in foreign countries. And yet Joe Biden doesn't want to touch that waste. He wants to defend that waste because he just wants to raise the credit card limit so he can spend more money. That's not sustainable. That's not, by the way, how families deal with their own spending crises. So we're ready to fix this problem. We'll do one more. Could you
give us a quick floor update? Because there's been a couple bills that were supposed to come to the floor that haven't, Border Safety and Security Act as well as Prosecutors Need to Prosecute Act. I mean, what's going on? Is this just growing pains of being in the new majority, or is this going to be an ongoing issue?
Well, one of the things you saw during the speaker's race is all of us, not just some members, because there was a universal agreement amongst Republicans that Washington's broken and we want to change the way Washington works. And so that's what the debate about the rules changes were. And frankly, we were in agreement on almost every change that was made. But one of the things you heard over and over again is members want to see regular order again. They want to see more bills go through committee. So some of those bills, look, we're going to be doing a big border security package that's going to go through the Judiciary Committee, through the Homeland Security Committee. They're just getting constituted. And so ultimately, you'll see those bills go through the committee process. Obviously, there's some bills we've brought up that have universal acceptance. I mean, look, last week we brought a resolution that should have passed unanimously that said we condemn attacks on churches and other pro-life facilities. We've seen Molotov cocktails get thrown into buildings. And if we can't all come together and say that's wrong, it has nothing to do with your views on abortion. But if somebody actually commits violence and throws a Molotov cocktail, which almost 100 times since the Dobbs leak we've seen, can we at least say that's wrong? And almost every Democrat voted against condemning those kind of attacks on churches and pro-life facilities. That's a problem they've got on their side. But ultimately, on a lot of these bills, larger energy policy, border security, Parents' Bill of Rights, dealing with crime in communities, all of these issues will be going through committee in the regular order process, by the way, where you can watch this on C-SPAN. You can actually follow the hearings. You can go to them in person because we got rid of virtual hearings in committee. You'll actually be able to see members in the committee room working through these complicated issues and ultimately bringing bills to the floor that are going to finally start addressing the problems families are facing so we can get our country back on track. It's going to be refreshing, and I think a lot of people will be watching. I know y'all will too. Thanks. Good being with you.
In reaction to the M1 Abrams things, with the USPS sending out?
I know they're still having those discussions right now.
Right now, we're just gonna go back
Can you walk, you good? You guys want this? Okay, go do it, okay, sorry.
You guys good? Really quick, though, I gotta. Yeah.
Testing, testing, testing. All right, I gotta go back in. Can you do this?
for keeping me apprised.
I've only worn it once this winter. I think I only wore it once last winter too.
To be fair, it has been unusually mild.
Yes, it has.
True. Yeah, Europe is lucky on that front.
Yeah, no skiing.
We got a very
It's Idaho.
nice,
Yeah.
Lots of snow there, yeah.
we got a very nice new overcoat for my wife for Christmas that I've yet to be able to wear anywhere, basically.
Well, it was supposed to spit snow today, so maybe conversational snow.
Hi Garrett, hi Lisa, Chad.
Jake.
Good morning
What's up,
to you,
guys?
Jake. Jake, what did you have a middle name?
You,
What is your middle name?
Scott.
Scott. It's also a good, it's like a superhero name, Jake Scott.
Jacob.
Jacob Scott.
What's your middle name?
I'm named after my mother, Patricia.
Your other name?
William.
Raymond, which is my father's. But I never once heard my mother ever call my dad Ray or Raymond. He was Purg, short for Purg. So he was Big Purg and I'm little Purg.
And my mom is Coop, which is amazing. And Cooper,
There you go.
nobody ever used my mom's first
Yeah,
name.
never once did I ever heard her called him.
You know, keep on trucking, right?
Tricia.
Jake Scott, right? Jacob Scott. I do feel like that's the reporter superhero character. You know, hi, I'm Jacob Scott.
Jacob Scott, Daily Planet.
Jacob Scott, Daily Planet, I've got a question.
You guys are lunatics.
Civil War general. I mean, it was just, one of those names.
Like a Tecumseh.
Yeah, exactly. That's
You know,
exactly what I'm
somewhere.
And
There's a lot of
this is like
Tecumsehs.
95, this thing should have been almost 20 years old.
Like the news conferences just keep coming, don't they?
Not gonna hurt. When there's less legislation, there's more news conferences. There's an inverse arrows on, I've always noticed that.
It's true. I also feel like what's happening here is we have
Cool.
sort of weird
Makes things a little easier.
debate in Congress availability war.
They're all thirsty for attention.
They're all,
And new people in a lot of the roles that are out there.
I'm an important figure.
Here I am.
Which is a microphone. Which is weird.
Go for it. I like it.
I'm also an important figure.
Yes. Yeah, just go straight to El Centro and Georgetown. That used to be like the Politico like drinkery.
Really? El Centro, Georgetown?
Because it was, you know, because that
Oh,
one
Roslyn,
fucking
yeah.
bar in Roslyn was terrible.
The Continental.
Yeah.
Just a short cut.
Yeah, it's not that far. It's only, 5 to 7 minutes, you know? I think it's also like it's open.
Well, mostly excellent. For some reason last night was up at like 2 and would not go back to sleep.
El Centro there was on 14th
So I was
Street,
like,
right?
you know, it's totally.
They died.
Should be 7 months.
Oh, is that right? What's it called now? So it's the same.
Yeah, it was 7 a.m. sleep. And then like, last night was just absolutely wired too and would not go back
Oh,
to sleep.
gotcha. I know those guys.
So, you know, it's like, roll the dice every time.
I had that happen to me. I woke up 3:36 for no apparent reason a couple nights ago. No idea
Was
why.
anyone available to rock you back to sleep?
No, that was the problem, man.
There's recently a story that Georgetown
That was
is
the
coming
problem.
back. I'm not sure. Right.
No, we had my guys.
The Washingtonian thing?
Yeah, I'm not sure I believe it yet.
He didn't have a chance to set up, so we ended up on the couch last night. We just
What did they name it? Was like Yellow's opening there?
Oh, they're opening that in the old,
It's definitely phase two.
that big supermarket.
Oh, Dina
The
Elizabeth.
old Dina Elizabeth, they're opening like an Italian
It's not imminent harm.
market restaurant. Right?
It's a more civilized country.
I've actually went to one good restaurant in Georgetown recently, a new restaurant called,
Oh, baby.
Tea, yeah, it does, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they were good.
died in the last 18 years. At some time over the last 18 years. Pandemic, before pandemic. Yeah. Not the Whole Foods wasn't there yet, right? No, that was a big empty lot actually, because the hospital used to be there, and then they moved the hospital across the street.
Daryl just says the enemy of patents for the small
But
investor.
there was nothing. There was a TGI Fridays, which I think just closed in the last like 6 months. Okay. There was nothing. Yeah, there was nothing. It's still pretty grim.
It's a little Western market thing now. There's like a grocery.
Where's that?
There's a Bindas.
Oh yeah, that's down on Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's like, you know how there was that mall that had like a kind of sad hall in it?
Yeah, that mall actually had a great like we used to get out of town newspapers. Like the Boston Globe, you used to get the LA Times there. You know. What project matters?
Good morning, everyone. First, I wanted to say on behalf of House Democrats, our thoughts and prayers go out to the communities of Monterey Park and Half Moon Bay and Oakland, California, as well as Des Moines, Iowa, as well. We're 3 weeks into 2023, and there have been 2,800 deaths from gun violence. We join President Biden and Vice President Harris in calling for continued gun safety legislation and stand ready to build safer communities by expanding the gun safety legislation and building upon the legislative successes that we had in that regard, and look forward to continued efforts to do that. My colleagues behind me and I joined in welcoming the Vice President of the United States to address our she not only talked about advancing reproductive freedom, building off of her speech this weekend and the 50th anniversary of Roe v. Wade. She delivered powerful remarks also supporting our effort might put forward in order to address the debt ceiling. This is a plan that would pay foreign investors and enact cuts to Social Security and Medicare, school lunches, law enforcement who aid in investigations across this country, as well as potentially the FAA that manages 25,000 flights per day. Republicans in Congress want to hold hostage veterans' benefits to enact deep Social Security and Medicare cuts. If you don't trust me, just read their own words on this topic. What's worse is that this plan just won't work. We're going to continue to highlight the economic catastrophe that could come from their proposed plans, and Democrats will oppose them at each and every step that they want to enact these deep cuts. With that, I'll yield to the Vice Chair, Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar, for your leadership and in line with what the chairman
It's why the people of West Michigan sent me here. I invite my Republican colleagues to join us in coming together to truly honor the sanctity of life by supporting families facing hard times and difficult choices. I'm ready to get to work. Thank you. I yield back to the chair.
Thank you, Hillary, Sydney, and Yadira for sharing those words. A question?
Thank you for your question. I do believe this is a bipartisan issue. You have artificial intelligence, which has done amazing things for our society, but if it's left unregulated and unchecked, it can cause harm. We've already seen some of the harms it's caused. We had a Tesla car simply stop in a tunnel in San Francisco that then resulted in a multi-car accident where 9 people were injured. You have this new program now called ChatGPT, which is free on the internet, and it will write essays for you. It will do all sorts of things. It makes it very hard for teachers and professors to now figure out if a student wrote it or if a computer program did. And you have all sorts of harms in the future that we don't even know about. And so I think Congress should step up and start looking at ways to regulate artificial intelligence. It's really hard to go from zero right now, virtually no regulation, to, for example, a federal agency, so you have to take steps in between. I think one step is to have a commission that looks at these very hard issues and makes recommendations to Congress as the best way to regulate AI.
Can I just follow up on the AI question for just a moment, though? You know, we've seen Congress struggle to regulate crypto. We've seen struggles with, say, Section 230. It's a divided Congress. Might be hard to get things done this year. I mean, doesn't Congress, you say you can't just start at, you have to start at zero. It's hard to kind of speed up, but because of the history of Congress being behind the curve on some of these tech issues, why would this not fall into that abyss as well?
It absolutely is going to be immensely difficult to regulate artificial intelligence. It is, first of all, a subject that's not well understood, even by experts. But you know what else is a subject not well understood? How molecules interact with hundreds of millions of unique human beings. And yet we stood up an entire FDA to regulate pharmaceutical drugs. So it can be done. You just have to take steps to get there. And I think it's something we have to start pursuing because technology and artificial intelligence is accelerating at a rate much faster than I think we can even comprehend at this point.
2 AI questions to start. I mean, that wasn't on my bingo card. Wasn't on my bingo card. Lisa? Lisa? Go.
Thank you. On the topic of abortion, 2 weeks ago the House passed a concurrent resolution condemning attacks on, with the resolution described as pro-life activists and facilities. Most every Democrat voted against that, including all of you on the stage. Can you just tell us why you voted against that? Something that Majority Leader Scalise today brought out as an example of Democrats being unreasonable. Tell us why you voted against it.
Look, we oppose all violence. Specific to that, resolution, we felt that it was important for us to send the message that so many of these, facilities aren't what they are billed as, and we wanted to be very clear that when Republicans advance proposals and policies, senses of Congress that are just political and don't have anything to do with true issues, that members are free to vote however they want. All of us shared that opinion, but and voted opposed to this. But I think it's important what my colleagues had mentioned, and I'm going to yield to them, is that the first 3 bills that Republicans advanced were attacking women's reproductive freedom. That's who Kevin McCarthy has enabled. He had to make all of these promises to attack women's rights in order to secure the votes for the speakership. It's an unfortunate state of play is where we are, but it highlights the extreme nature of where House Republicans are within their agenda. I'll yield to Sydney Kamlager if she wants to.
Yeah, I would just say that that was a Republican, gotcha and red herring. We should be opposing violence across the board. I come from a state where not only patients have been attacked, but also providers that are providing abortion care are being attacked daily. And so that wasn't in that resolution language. And if you are going to call out violence, you should call it out across the board. This is not about pitting women against one another. This is about standing up for what's right, and that's protecting a woman's right to choose and her right to access abortion care.
Hillary Scholten.
The resolution only went halfway. It only condemned violence on one side of the aisle. When I read the resolution, I was inclined to condemn violence. We condemn all forms of violence. But instead, what we did was got together and introduce a counter resolution that condemned violence across the board, including against pregnancy resources, but also abortion clinics, which receive substantially more times the violence than these pregnancy resource centers or churches do. We take the violence seriously. I've certainly been subject to a lot of heated harassment as well for my stance as a pro-choice Christian. It's a heated area, and we have to lower the temperature on this issue, but we're not going to do it by only condemning violence on one side and additionally using a lot of inflammatory rhetoric that was used in this resolution. That's not the way forward. Thank you.
Let me tell you why I voted no on that resolution, because at the heart of that resolution was a lie. If you read the resolution, it goes through all these instances of condemning violence, which I support, and then it says the Biden administration is at fault for not taking action in those violent incidents. That is just a lie. The whole point of this resolution was to blame the Biden administration for these acts of violence. That is a lie. It is false. That is why I voted against it, and the Republicans should be ashamed for putting that lie into that resolution.
How does the caucus respond to the speaker kicking two of your fellow Californians off the Intel committee, and what's your sense of where things stand on Ilhan Omar getting to keep her seat on foreign affairs?
I think it's ridiculous that the speaker would kick two good members who know a lot about the intelligence world off of the committee, while at the same time seating George Santos and giving him 2 committee assignments. I think it's ridiculous, and the caucus feels that way. These are members that were advanced by the Democratic caucus and our leader to serve in this capacity and have served. And it's unfortunate that, but it is the speaker's prerogative, just like it's his prerogative to seat George Santos on 2 committees in Congress, while we are completely uncertain as to what aspects of his life he's ever told the truth on. With respect to Ilhan Omar, I would note when Democrats took action, it was bipartisan action to remove members who had made threats to their colleagues. It would take a vote and a resolution for that to happen, and the Democratic caucus stands with Representative Omar that she should serve on this committee, and we'll see how Republicans want to handle this.
You're confident you'd have 100% of the caucus in support of her?
The Democratic caucus is supportive of her serving in this capacity. She has the background and breadth and experience to serve on this committee, and she should be able to. And clearly it's going to be, based on the letter I read, it's going to be a bipartisan vote to keep her on the committee.
Are you frustrated with President Biden's handling of classified documents?
I'm frustrated that if anyone doesn't handle confidential and secret documents in the manner in which they're supposed to. All of us up here, we have security clearances, and when we handle things, I'm a defense appropriator. I go to the secure facility and read documents often. There's a process by which we are allowed to do that. There's a process by which we leave devices and view that material in a safe and secure environment, and then leave. It's clear that some protocols weren't followed. I think based on what we know, the current president, President Biden, and Vice President Pence have handled this the way that they should, in letting everyone know and talking to the archives and law enforcement agencies as to what was found. It's clear that the former president didn't handle this appropriately and has obstructed every possible avenue in which authorities could view that material and lied about the material that he had in his possession. So I do view them differently, but I think altogether it's disappointing that this keeps happening. Next question, in the back. Go ahead. You. Yeah.
So on the debt limit, you said that Democrats will oppose each and every step to enact deep cuts. Are you open to discussing any cuts?
Look, there's a process for this. Thank you for teeing me up to put my appropriator hat on. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm a House appropriator, and I stand, ready to work with my colleagues in that committee to look at what our top line number is for spending, and then devising 12 appropriations bills that spend up to that number. We're going to have disagreements. We always do in that committee. But we're going to have substantive dialogue. We're going to have hearings within each committee. We're going to talk to the agencies. We're going to talk to outside experts. We're going to find out how we can use taxpayer dollars efficiently and effectively for the American public. But that's a conversation that can be had within the budget committees, within the appropriations committees. That's how this should be addressed. This should not be addressed through the extreme way that House Republicans want to do it, which is by making promises to the most extreme of their caucus and to cut defense, to cut benefits to veterans, to cut Social Security and Medicare. Those are the types of promises they made to get to this position, and we won't stand for that.
Some of your colleagues in the Senate have talked about a bipartisan push for immigration reform, and I'm just curious if you guys have had any discussion in caucus around what you'd like to see in any immigration packages that could be put forward this Congress.
This is something that's important for the Democratic caucus. It's something that I've spent a lot of time, on as well. We advanced so many important pieces of legislation that didn't go anywhere in the Senate, unfortunately. And I think about two strong bipartisan efforts, and I hope that we can continue the conversation in that regard to the Dream and Promise Act, right? Having a path to citizenship for Dreamers and DACA recipients, as well as addressing the temporary protected status that so many have in our communities, as well as the Farm Worker Modernization Bill, done in a bipartisan way in the House. Both of those bills passed the last Congress in a bipartisan way. That's where we should start the conversation. Our goal, our aspirations are always going to be comprehensive immigration reform, and I stand ready and willing to work with the administration and with some of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, if that's their true intention. But we're not going to support policies that enact a medieval, border wall or dramatically gut our asylum process that is been in existence for decades. Those are things that we aren't going to entertain. But if people want to have real solutions on the table, we're willing to engage and have conversations.
Last question. Just on the debt ceiling, just to follow up on her question. Are you supporting the president? He will not negotiate a grand budget bargain with Republicans related to the debt ceiling. Are you supporting that? No negotiations on that?
We're not going to negotiate the full faith and credit of and compromise the full faith and credit of the United States. That is not what we're going to do. If Republicans want to have conversations about our federal spending levels within the budget and appropriations committees and contexts, we're happy to have those conversations, as we have time and time again. But if they want to enact broad and deep cuts to Medicare and Social Security, and that's their starting point, then that's not anything we're going to entertain. We're united behind protecting those programs. we're united behind ensuring that veterans receive the benefits that they have earned. I'll yield to the Vice Chair.
It's very clear that Republicans want to cut Social Security. They've been trying to do this since President Bush tried to privatize Social Security, and they want to hold our economy hostage in order to do that. At the same time, they haven't even presented a plan. So show us your plan. We would like to see what Republicans show, because it's going to show cutting Social Security plus a bunch of other things. And perhaps an analogy is the best way to think about this. So for your family in America, if you have a debt on your car and you make monthly loan payments to your car, you don't get to just stop making those loan payments and say, hey, let's talk about a future car and what kind of deal I can get on it. Because what happens when you stop making your loan payments on your car gets repossessed. Bad things happen. So don't let Republicans do bad things to our economy.
The last point I'd say, Eric, is I think it's 78 times that the debt limit has been raised, 49 when Republicans were in charge, 3 when President Trump was an occupant of the Oval Office. It feels like Republicans only want to have these extreme discussions when a Democrat is occupying the White House, and that doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right for the American public that they want to assault Social Security and Medicare as a result of their negotiating posture within this and the votes that they needed in order for Kevin McCarthy to be Speaker. Thank you so much.
was about probably dropping by, but yeah. Shift. Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I'll still be down here. You know, there'll be someone from our office usually inspect work.
Best case scenario.
Thank you.
Best case scenario is just like completely like one of them folded discs in the book.
It's swallow. I mean, shifts didn't actually like it was swallow. I feel like there's an argument there. It's just like she didn't do anything. Like just like promoted the steel company. Right. Yeah. And it's just like people are like complaining about like George Santos. It's like my thing on George Santos is like defend him. Go ahead, defend him. Say, you know, like due process, whatever. Do not try to gaslight me into thinking that anything that man has done is normal. Like lying is one thing. He's never told the truth. Yeah, but then everybody. Yeah, I mean, people. I had one person who's just like, I think it's very wrong to lie about your own biography. Like a big piece is your biography. And when I say that, of course, I'm referring to President Biden. Which is, yeah, Biden like lied about a bunch of stuff in the 88 campaign. Nowhere near this issue. And I just refuse to let anybody make me believe for a second that this is normal. Like, basically, this is makes Trump look like very honest. And I honestly think this was like almost, it's like an interesting like transition out of the Trump era where it's like we have this new figure now who's just like the lie. It's like reincarnated as Trump fades, Santos rises. I was gonna try to So essentially, when it comes to setting up like, you know, Facebook Lives and things for streaming, typically the best spot is like right here or with that other pillar. In terms of the audio quality, there's no like projection system here, so it's just more of a matter of like how loud they talk.
Right, okay.
But yeah. For sure, sure. And I'll be in the front, and then my friend Zeke will be in the back. He's over there right now, but I'll just tell her you're back here.
Okay, great, thank you.
For sure. But she's at least going to be setting it up for the. How's it going? Pretty good. To my knowledge.
So yeah, it'll be down this hallway. You'll make a right and then left, and then before that elevator bank, before that's the spiral staircase, you'll see us here.
Yes, yes, yes. Bye. Side of home.
Good morning. I'm Congressman Adam Schiff. Speaker's decision to remove Mr. Swalwell and myself from the Intelligence Committee, as well as his continuing threat to call a vote to remove Ilhan Omar from the Foreign Affairs Committee. I'm joined, of course, by my colleagues Eric Swalwell and Ilhan Omar. Let me just begin, if I can, to make a few observations about the decision on the to my colleagues. This decision by Kevin McCarthy to bow to the demands of the most extreme
abused political power to punish and demean and smear his political opponents. And the new McCarthy in Washington today is doing the same. And throughout this journey of vengeance, the three of us have chosen to stick together because this isn't about any individual committee assignment. This is about an institution where the Speaker of the House is using his power to go after his political opponents and to pick them off the field. And that's why we've chosen every step of the way to stick together. In my case, it's purely political vengeance. Speaker McCarthy is choosing to do something that Speaker Boehner, Speaker Ryan, and Speaker Pelosi did not do, which is with access to the same information with the claims that Speaker McCarthy has made about me, Speaker Boehner, Speaker Ryan, and Speaker Pelosi kept me on the committee. Chairman Nunes, with access to the same information to which Mr. McCarthy is making claims about me, never made a peep, allowed me to stay on the committee. The claims that Mr. McCarthy has made about me that I could never get a security clearance, Mr. Schiff was also briefed on and supported me staying on the committee because the FBI said 3 times, all I did was 2 things. I helped them over and over, and I was never suspected of wrongdoing. The Washington Post, in response to Mr. McCarthy's claims, gave him 4 Pinocchios, which is a whopper, the highest amount that they can give for one of the biggest lies that you could tell about somebody else. So this is purely about political vengeance. The cost is not only removing us from the committee. On the Intelligence Committee, the cost is not only breaking, shattering the most precious glassware in the cabinet, a committee that's always been bipartisan. The cost are the death threats that Ms. Omar, myself, and Mr. Schiff keep getting because Mr. McCarthy continues to aim and project these smears against us. Even though we have said publicly these smears are bringing death threats, he continues to do it, which makes us believe that there's an intent behind it. But we will not be quiet. We're not going away. I think he'll regret giving all three of us more time on our hands. But at the end of the day, our mission now is to restore the credibility and integrity of this institution of which the Speaker has so gravely smashed and destroyed. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Omar, a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the first member of that committee to be born in Africa who could serve on a subcommittee and lead a subcommittee on the Democratic side in a historic way because of her history and her bond to that continent.
Thank you, Chairman Schiff and Representative Swalwell. Our democracy and our governing bodies rest on a healthy and vibrant debate. Our strength lies not in our perfection, but in the diversity of our voices and our openness to civil discourse. That is why, whatever our disagreements might be as members of Congress, policy differences alone have not and must not be cause for eliminating someone from serving on a committee. In modern American history, the punishment of stripping a member of Congress of their committee assignments has been reserved for only the most egregious wrongdoings. Those convicted or indicted on corruption, those who have engaged in bribery, sexual misconduct, encouraged violence, or other grave charges. I have served on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the House Education and Labor Committee for the past 2 terms, committees that I have lived experience and expertise in. As a child who survived war, lived in a refugee camp, I would have never imagined that I would one day have the opportunity to serve on a subcommittee on Africa, global health, and global human rights. I would not have believed that I would one day not just serve as the first African-born member of Congress, but on a committee that oversees policies towards the continent. Kevin McCarthy's purely partisan move to strip us from our committee is not only a political stunt, but also a blow to the integrity of our democratic institution and threat to our national security. We are thankful to Leader Jeffries and House Democrats, and even some courageous Republicans, for standing with us. If McCarthy wants to denigrate the integrity of the House and its committees, we will always stand up to these efforts. I am grateful for the confidence of my constituents and my colleagues have shown me to serve on these committees, and I look forward to continuing that work of building a more peaceful world.
We're happy to respond to some questions. We understand the president is going to speak at noon, so we're going to try to be off the stage before then. Yes.
We heard from you, Representative Swalwell, just now, your defense, your answer to the accusations against you, but I'd like to hear from the both of you. And I know you've been asked these questions before, but in particular to Speaker McCarthy's accusations again last night that you should not be on the Intelligence Committee because he says that you've told lies, including about former Chairman Nunes. I want to give you a chance to directly respond, and also to you, Representative Omar, to the accusations they're laying against you.
Well, I could just say that Mr. McCarthy's rationalizations, justifications keep shifting. The cardinal sin appears to be that I led the impeachment of his master in Mar-a-Lago for withholding hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid from Ukraine, a nation that was even then at war with Russia, in order to extort that country into helping Donald Trump's re-election campaign. We proved those facts and got the first bipartisan vote in the Senate in history to remove a president. Kevin McCarthy calls that a hoax. Well, it was not a hoax. But he will do the former president's bidding. He is entirely reliant on the former president, and this is something the former president wants. But I can assure you that if the former president or Kevin McCarthy believes that this is going to stop any of us from fighting to protect our democracy, they're going to find out that the opposite is true. It only will intensify our commitment to doing so. I do want to mention, with respect to Mr. Swalwell also, that as he indicated, I sat in on that briefing. And when Kevin McCarthy misrepresents it and does that disservice to the American people, it's shameful. Mr. Swalwell has served honorably on our committee. He's never been accused of any kind of wrongdoing. This is a patently unfair smear by Mr. McCarthy, but that's what he traffics in, and that's what we're seeing.
I have addressed it. I've 2.5 terms ago, and I think it is really important in all of our cases to remember it is not the accusations that McCarthy is making against us that is pushing for our removal from these committees. It is about revenge. It's about the appeasing the former president. All three of us have been a thorn in the back of the previous disgraced president. Republicans have been gunning for our seats and obviously know how effective that we have been in upholding the Constitution, in defending our democracy, in standing up to extremists, and we will continue to do that work regardless of whether we are seated on these committees or not.
My question is for Congresswoman Omar. At least 2 Republicans have come out so far and said they won't support removing you from your committee. I wonder if
this is a is seating a human fraud, George Santos, on committees, a serial fabricator about every part of his existence. He's perfectly comfortable with it. He needs George Santos' vote, if that's the name that he's going by these days. This is someone who, Kevin McCarthy, who owes his allegiance to a party leader in Mar-a-Lago who dines with white nationalists and anti-Semites. He's putting people on committees who speak at white nationalist rallies. The hypocrisy just grabs you by the throat. But hypocrisy is probably the least of Mr. McCarthy's sins. The most significant impact is that he is continuing this destructive trend set by his party leader of tearing down our institutions, of degrading the Congress. And you know, this new select committee that he's establishing is going to simply just bring greater discredit on the Congress. And that's our paramount concern, is what he's doing to our institutions. In a bitter bargain to get the gavel, to get the speakership, he is slowly undermining each part of the work of this institution, and that's certainly not in the best interest of the country, which expect us to be working to make sure that we confront inflation, that we deal with the economic challenges that we have, that we create an economy that works for everyone. This is what our focus should be on, not on what the lowest common denominator in the Republican conference wants.
I would just add, you're seeing now the fulfillment of Kevin McCarthy's corrupt bargain, a corrupt bargain with Marjorie Taylor Greene, somebody who declared on January 5, the day before the attack on the Capitol, that this is 1776, someone who cheered on the insurrectionists, somebody who, as we honor the police officers who were injured that day, she goes to the D.C. jail to make sure that insurrectionists are taken care of. The first time this person's ever cared about the conditions of a jail is when insurrectionists are inside it. She's going on the Homeland Security Committee. It's too rich that the day that George Santos, yesterday, admits to the Federal Election Commission that he defrauded them in his statement that he put $500,000 of his own money into the campaign. It's too rich that the day that he admits that he lied to a federal agency, that the ranking member of the Intel Committee is pulled off the committee. It's just too rich that as the three of us are about to lose our committees, this corrupt bargain also enables Paul Gosar, who depicted himself killing a colleague, goes on to a committee. And it's too rich that this corrupt bargain also includes $75 billion to defund the troops, to defund the troops by $75 billion, a part of the promises that he made for this corrupt bargain. So we are caught up in this corrupt bargain. It doesn't feel good at all. It doesn't feel good personally, but that's not what's important. It doesn't feel good for the country and the Congress because they ran on inflation, crime, border, and they're not taking on any of that. This is the nonsense they're focused on.
Last question. Argument that you cannot get a security clearance in the private sector. You kind of defended that, saying you cooperated with the FBI. Could you walk us through how you handled that situation after that that issue with the Chinese?
For the campaign, starting in 2012. FBI came to me and told me this person is not who you and your team think they are. We worked with them. And the FBI, 3 different times when this investigation was leaked, the FBI 3 times said no wrongdoing. All he did was help us. Donald Trump at the time had access to more classified information than anyone who walked the earth. Just like he called out my colleagues here at rallies, called me out all the time. If he could have embarrassed me to weaponize classified information, you know he would have. John Boehner reappointed me to the committee. Speaker Ryan reappointed me to the committee. So again, I don't want to validate these smears, but Kevin McCarthy is making claims about something that 2 prior speakers had access to, and Speaker Boehner, I know for a fact, was briefed on, and didn't do anything, didn't say anything, kept me on the committee because it was nothing other than doing what every American, I hope, would do if they found out that somebody like this Chinese individual was trying to infiltrate the campaign. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You said twice already. What does that mean?
going back into the majority.
Yeah.
Oh, it just said nice to see you.
Oh, this is you too.
Quiz, that's my name.
Never mind me, sorry.
Okay,
Okay, sorry.
it's okay. We were in Russell basement one night.
Oh, man, yeah, that's right, okay. Yeah, we were hazing.
Good job.
Yeah. Thank you for coming
How'd
back.
I do? I didn't get hazy yet.
Well, you're still here, yeah, no, exactly.
Initiation.
That's right, you made it. Next up is the secret handshake.
Okay.